Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Hays Leading with Pride series. I'm Geoff Collings, I'm a director with Hays, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Keiren Sharman. Keiren, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Keiren. I am currently the deputy head of the debt solutions team in Lloyds Bank Corporate Markets. I had to think about that for a second because I've only been doing it for 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I understand you're also the co-chair of the Rainbow LGBT Plus professional network.
I am. So I've actually been with the network almost since inception. I used to lead the development strand for 7 years. Yeah. Then I was the deputy co-chair, and then actually I was recently made the co-chair.
Oh, congratulations again then.
It's a lot of change.
Yeah, well look, welcome today. I'd like to begin, if possible, just to sort of ask you to talk us through your career to date and the journey that you've had and how you've ended up holding the positions that you hold today.
Yeah, sure. So I never intended being a banker.
Right.
That was never something I ever wanted to do. When I was asked what I wanted to do for a living at the age of 5, I actually said I wanted to be a horse to my teacher.
A horse?
Yeah, I'm clearly not very good at science, but luckily I am quite good at maths.
Okay.
So when I first started my career, somebody offered me a company car at the age of 21, and I kind of went, oh, that seems like a good idea. Right. So that was actually how I ended up in banking. I started off in sales for quite a period of time. I was in retail sales, then I would train people how to actually sell. And after a while, decided actually I really wanted to go down the commercial route. So I became a relationship manager in the commercial teams for quite a while, moved around various different locations, and then decided actually I wanted to take a step back and actually do things that would change the bank for the better. Right. And it was around that time I actually also started getting involved in the ERG group. So because I wanted to actually improve the culture of the organisation, I wanted to be able to influence processes so they were less focused on the sales teams. So that's how I've ended up I went into portfolio management first, and then I actually went into product ownership. I was the head of lending for a while, and then that's the role I've now just left to move into this new one.
Okay. And you talked about sort of joining the employee resource group and becoming a part of the Rainbow Network. How did you get involved in that?
So as it was first being put together, it was actually quite lucky timing for me, because throughout most of my career, the first part of my career, I wasn't really out. In my earlier sales roles, I used to actually pretend I had a girlfriend called Gail. I don't know where I'd actually come up with that name. Yes. I don't think it's relatively realistic actually for someone my age group, but I was always in the closet. And then after a while, I did start coming out to my colleagues, and actually it all went really, really well. And then I moved roles in 2010. And I moved into a team that was very, very male dominant. And I think they were kind of, as the new person in the team, they were already looking for a reason to kind of keep me on the outside. Yeah. So when I first came out to them, that seemed to be the perfect opportunity for them to just start excluding me from everything. Right. So they would have conversations in the office, and they would just stop talking when I was there, when I would try and join in, or they would just kind of stare at each other and smirk. They'd go out for drinks after work, and they'd all talk about it right in front of me but not invite me. They'd go for a run at lunchtime, and they'd all talk about it right in front of me but not invite me. And so I really felt excluded from that team. I really didn't feel like I was part of it, and I hated going to work every single day. I can guarantee, I was a terrible performer at that point. There was no one on earth anyone would want to hire me at that point, because my confidence was absolutely through the floor. And it was just at that point that the ERG group for LGBT was actually being built in Lloyds. And they started their first networking sessions, and in a couple of their first networking sessions, I found some people who were actually hiring and looking for new people. And I actually managed to secure myself a job by networking through the LGBT community. Wow. And I managed to get myself out of that team. So I was immediately forever grateful, and I was then sort of volunteering all the time to go, right, what can I do to help you, because you've really helped me in my career. Yeah. So that's how I actually ended up leading the development strand for them. And then it's just kind of escalated from there.
And how has the the network evolved?
I mean, it's evolved in a huge way. We started off as very much just kind of social networking. It was just a way of trying to build a community. And then we refocused, funny enough, actually, when I joined the ERG, we refocused on career development. So we developed a mentoring program. I wrote the first reverse mentoring program for the group, which then actually we've expanded across all the other networks. We went down the route of actually finding leadership programs for the LGBT community. So we used to use the Stonewall Leadership Program. We used to use their Allies program as well. And then over time, we started focusing more on the individual LGBT strands and the QIA strand to actually find the individual needs of each of those different communities and try and help build those out. So, I mean, it's a very, very successful ERG group because we were Stonewall #1. We're the highest scoring company ever. We've won LGBT Network of the Year on a couple of occasions. We've had quite a few people in the ERG who are on various role model lists. We have an internal role model list as well, which kind of looks at people who are trying to help everyone beyond their own community. So I'm on the role model list this year because of all the work I've done for the trans community. Yeah. Just raising awareness and trying to be a good ally.
Yeah. Well, you talk about allies, and it was something that I think you and I have discussed before, but what role do you think allies have to play within ERG groups? Why are they such a powerful force, do you think, for them?
I mean, from my perspective, they are the most powerful force. Right. Every ERG group should be for everybody. That's the whole point of them. They are supposed to be inclusive environments. But I think when you're telling the story of someone else, it's so much more powerful because you're not self-serving. I think if I go back to the story of when I was bullied for being gay, the same group of people were also bullying a woman in our team who'd only recently joined, and she was an Asian woman. They were largely using sexist abuse towards her more than anything else. I heard them call her a stupid woman on several occasions, but I also did see them mocking her accent and using various racist slurs. And as soon as I heard them doing that so outwardly, with me, they just excluded me, so I didn't feel like I could do anything about it. I didn't even realise that I was actually being bullied at the time. I just knew how awful it felt. But with her, they were being so incredibly aggressive and just abusive and horrible. And as soon as I heard it, I immediately stood up and went straight into the managing director's office and just said that it was disgusting behaviour and it shouldn't be accepted in the office. It was so much easier to stand up for her than it was to stand up for myself. Because when I stand up for myself, I feel like I'm self-serving, I feel like I'm the troublemaker. When you stand up for someone else, it has way more power. Yeah. And actually you feel great about doing it yourself as well. But on top of that, there is affinity bias. When you're talking to someone who looks like you and sounds like you and has sort of similar traits, and they have a certain viewpoint and they're basically saying, I am supportive of this community, you're actually more likely to listen than you are if somebody who's a member of that community is saying it. It's just part of the kind of human psyche. That's how we all seem to respond.
Yeah. And what's next for the Lloyds professional network?
Our focus this year is very much around joy and success. There's been the general pendulum of inclusion doesn't always move forwards. And there is a bit of a push backwards quite a lot. There's kind of this anti-woke idea of trying to say that, if you are inclusive of the trans community, if you're inclusive of LGB, if you're inclusive of the QIA, I keep constantly seeing it on social media at the moment. We're referred to as the alphabet people. I think what we need to do is focus on actually joy and success in those communities, because you can easily, educational events and things like that are brilliant. And as long as somebody who's coming there is learning, then that's brilliant. But we do spend a lot of time talking to the LGBT community about how to be LGBT.
Right.
Which is a little bit, you're kind of preaching to the converted. What we actually want to do is make sure that those people are coming away from our events feeling joyful, feeling like they're in an organisation that really supports them, that really wants them to succeed and really wants them to progress.
Yeah, okay. So if I was an employer looking to build out my first network, for example, what sort of advice would you give me?
I'd say, first of all, start it as soon as you can. You're not going to have the perfect ERG on day one. That just isn't going to happen. But talk to other organisations. There are lots of organisations across sectors that share information. So I actually also used to chair an organisation called Interbank, which is, they have 45 different member banks, and we share best practice. If one of us is doing something really good in the LGBT space, we share how we did it with everybody else. So, just for an example, when Lloyds originally included gender dysphoria as part of our colleague healthcare package, we shared with other banks and other organisations how we'd had that conversation with insurers, how we'd had that conversation with Bupa, and what product we'd actually managed to create with them so that it could then be shared and someone else could do something better. Yeah. So talk to other organisations who are in your sphere, talk to your suppliers, talk to people that you sell to. I did an event last week with Tata, who are a major supplier of Lloyds, and they wanted to do a roundtable on the challenges faced by ERG groups. So they brought a huge group of their own clients together to talk about it, to just see how we could improve, how we could all help each other, what ideas each one of us had come up with. It was an absolutely brilliant session, and it worked so well. But just added a huge amount of value. So talk to people, get involved as soon as you can, make sure you're focusing on the community, but also make sure it's led from the top. You're never going to create an inclusive culture unless your top line leadership actually genuinely care about it. And I mean really care about it, not just do it for lip service.
Yeah. And from an ally perspective, have you got any advice you could give to people thinking about sort of wanting to become allies?
Yeah, again, just get involved. Be visible. Be challenging if you hear something about that community that you don't think sits right. There are lots and lots of people who would classify themselves as allies, but they're passive when they hear homophobic commentary, when they hear racist commentary, when they hear misogynistic commentary. They kind of let it pass. Don't let it pass, challenge it. Be a visible ally, be a visible safe space for the community that you want to support. And get involved as much as possible, because the more you can educate yourself, the better you'll feel about it all, and the more you'll actually just feel that you're supporting someone else. Although I'm a member of the LGBT ERG group, I'm an ally to every ERG group that we have across the organisation. So, and the reason for that is because I believe in inclusion. I don't just believe in LGBTQIA inclusion, I believe in inclusion as a whole. I believe that it really does lead to high-performing cultures.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, touching on inclusivity, because it's such an important sort of subject area at the moment. What do you think employers can do to become more inclusive?
Oh, that's a really tough one. What can they do to be more inclusive? I mean, think about the communities that you have within your colleague group. Think about the communities you have in your customer set. And think about the inequality that they face. All anyone is trying to do in the inclusion field is create a level playing field. And there's lots of people who kind of say, well, you're helping that group over there, but you're not helping us. And it's kind of like, well, if that particular community needs support, be part of it. Get involved in it and actually just help support, because all we're trying to do is actually create a level playing field.
Yeah. Taking you back to yourself and your sort of early career, is there Is there any advice that you would want to give your younger self when it came to coming out, for example, and the stage at which you came out, or how to become more involved?
I do wish I'd come out a little bit sooner. I don't necessarily wish I'd come out at the beginning of my career, because culturally we weren't in the same space that we are now. We have progressed so much over the last 20 years. But when I actually do think about how I came out, I was kind of comedically brought out of the closet by a pair of guys who I worked with who were absolutely brilliant. They were both just awesome. They knew I was in a relationship. I had told them that my fake girlfriend's name was Gail. And we would go out on a regular basis, and I was basically their wingman. We would go out, and they would pretty much be on the pull, and I would always just be there to be the sort of the one who was really friendly and could just chat to everybody. But they were really, really supportive of me right from the very beginning, and I think they knew I was gay right from the very, very beginning. Right. And it actually took us sitting down in a pub one day and them just saying, like, look, can you just say again, what is your partner's name? And I was like, it's actually Dave. And they kind of went, right, why didn't you just tell us that? We're cool. And they were then my support through the whole of coming out. So, and they were good friends as well. I'd been mates with them for a couple of years by the time I actually told them. And I just wish I'd actually told them sooner, because they would have supported me right from the very beginning. Yeah. And I would have had a much more fun in work. I would have not had to spend all of my time trying to guard what I said at the weekend and trying to insert the name Gail into so many different things. I'm not sure if I had an obsession with Gail Platt from Coronation Street, by the way. I don't know where that came from.
Well, but I mean, it obviously stood you in good stead for a short period of time, but much better when Dave came out.
Yes, exactly. That was better.
On a sort of, I suppose, a slightly more serious note, but in terms of offering advice, have you got any advice you could give to anyone from the LGBTQ plus community starting out in their sort of professional career?
The main bit of advice I would give is get involved in your ERG group.
Right.
It's not just for your own benefit, not just for the benefit of your community, but actually for the benefit of your own career. When I got involved in the ERG group, my key purpose was to actually try and help the community. I wanted to help because they'd helped me. What I didn't really realise is that actually I'd worked in quite siloed parts of the bank, and I didn't really understand what an enormous, broad organisation it actually was. So it gave me a huge new level of organisational awareness, and actually really helped me to get out of the, not only the job I was in at the time, but actually the career path I was on, because I didn't know what other career paths there were for me. But then it also gave me a huge amount of senior executive exposure. Because of the work I've done in the LGBT space, I've been offered various jobs in other organisations because they've seen the work I've done through Interbank. But also I've had really, really good levels of senior engagement. Top board members, GEC level, people talking to me and genuinely wanting my advice on things relating to LGBT. But it's got me within their vision. They've then sort of started to understand who I am, and it's given me an exposure that I never would have had otherwise. There's a lot of people go back into the closet when they come into work. They'll be out in university, they come into the workspace and they go into the closet because they think it will damage their career to be out. If you're in a job where it damages your career to be out, I would suggest probably change job. Find another route, because there will be one where you can be your authentic self and you can be happy and you can still progress.
Yeah.
And actually, getting involved in your ERG group will really open your eyes to that.
Yeah, that's great advice. I must ask, because you're the newly crowned chair of the Rainbow Network, what plans have you got for it?
Well, the previous chair was a very, very active person. Right. So he had a plan for the whole of 2024. So my initial requirement is actually to deliver all of the things that he had on his list, which is pretty extensive. We're supporting 30 different prides this year, which is an absolutely massive undertaking. We've got we have a national event to deliver, at the end of the year where we'll have GEC members joining to come and talk to the LGBT community within Lloyds, which is a full day, which is going to be based in Leeds. That should be absolutely amazing. I've got various different listening sessions to do with not only the CEO of the organisation, but also with the actual executive sponsor. It's a guy called Andrew Walton, brilliant guy. So there's so much to deliver already this year. I'm not sure I actually have time to think of another strategy, but I think what we'll need to do next year, I want to spend a lot of time this year focusing on supporting the trans community further, because they're being used as a political football quite a lot of the time. I want to see what the political landscape is next year, and then I need to focus on how we actually maybe start bringing together roundtables with other organisations to actually start sharing, not just within our own sector, but within our own client group, within our own suppliers, all of the things like that. How do we actually start really taking the value we have as an organisation and spreading that wider? Because all of it is for the benefit of the community. Yeah. This is the one thing we don't have to be competitive on. We can actually just do something for the good of everyone.
That's brilliant. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how you're going to inspire everybody over the course of your next tenure.
Well, I'll have to bring Hayes in as well.
Yeah, well, look forward to it. I think that's brilliant. Keiren, thank you ever so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to watching what happens over the course of your tenure as the chair. Thank you for watching or listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more episodes, or via Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you'd like any further pointers on what's been discussed today, please do visit Hayes UK and Ireland websites or fairerconsulting.com.